When something works, you don't know why. And when something stops working, you don't know why. Producing content is cheap. Knowing what to produce is very expensive. The fundamental moat in any business now is, do you understand your customer?
Hey, I'm Mateo. Welcome to the Media Buying Minute, where we share what's actually working in paid ads from the top 1% at MediaBuyer.com. Today I sat down with Vilk. He's spent over 25 million in meta ads and verifiably generated over 55 million in revenue for D2C brands. He's focused on ad creatives, but as a systems thinker, and he broke down today why most brands are wasting money on creative testing, and he also shares his approach on turning every ad dollar into market research, and he walks through an example of how he found a completely untapped audience that the brand had no idea had existed. This is a preview of my conversation with Vilk, and enjoy.
The question became, when everything becomes free and cheap, what becomes expensive? And I'm like, well, the model that we had, or the agency model, or people have like a software model, like when the cost of producing something or doing an action is so cheap, then the actual expensive thing is knowing what thing to actually do. It's like that famous consultant story of like a consultant comes in, they're in a nuclear plant and the thing's melting down, and they pay a consultant $50,000 to like solve the problem, and he solves it. But on the line item, he wrote, the cost to solve the problem, $49,999, and then the Sharpie to circle where the actual problem was for someone to click and quickly fix, $1. Right? Knowing what to actually fix and like knowing what to actually make and knowing who to actually target is the expensive thing, because information is so cheap now, and the cost of testing and validating and producing is so cheap. So thinking a lot about like, where is the puck going there? Because I think a lot of people aren't, especially an agency owner. I think agencies are going to get commoditized. You cannot operate in the old way. Brands, I mean, the cost of running a brand is so expensive from an OpEx side, people. So like, how do you maximize people is another thing that I'm thinking about. And then if you're a software using like these AI models to generate stuff, if everyone has the same models, what's your differentiation, right? So everyone's getting squeezed from the same spot.
Next, we started talking about creative volume. I asked Phil what happens when creative volume stops working, and is more creatives always the answer?
I think the theory in the past was the way to help people was to give them as much volume of diverse things to then see what resonates with, on the ads. And that was a whole belief with like Andromeda, or I guess pre-Andromeda's ton of volume, creative diversity. So we built our entire production model, our entire product around, we can turn any video that you find on Foreplay, any video you find in Facebook ad library, any video you see from anyone on Instagram, we can recreate that using existing content. Now, like that worked to a certain point, but it actually, we found, put people in a position where they were more confused because things worked. And they're like, why does it work? Like, well, we copied it, like you guys modeled a good video. We just followed the instructions, And the question is like, well, how do I get more of it to work? I'm like, I couldn't tell you why it worked. You copied somebody else who probably copied somebody else. So like, where's the independent thought? And I understood that the actual value of a business, or of the ads rather, is less about getting sales directly and more about understanding the customer, using it as almost like market research, where Facebook is the ultimate surveying tool. You can reach billions of people at any given point in time, anytime. And all you have to do is you just put up a piece of creative and somebody happens to click or buy if you're lucky. But that key thing of like, if somebody actually buys off of a Facebook ad through a random funnel you built or a random landing page you built, that says a lot about, one, the product, the positioning, and the piece of content that convinced them to actually purchase, rather than if you went to like a focus group or a market research group and you're like, hey, would you buy my product? The thing is like, would you buy my product? You're paying for an opinion, whereas with Facebook, you're not influencing them other than the ad itself. So if they bought, they actually were convinced to buy the product. And that key insight, like how to use Facebook to teach a business, about its own customers, while using creative to test a bunch of different audiences, which then gives the business conviction where to scale. That's a real gold. But you see, it's like the knowledge is more valuable than the production. Producing content is cheap. Knowing what to produce is very expensive.
So, how are you actually doing this now for your clients?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, I don't know why people don't do this, but common sense is not common practice. But I think a lot of people with the whole test more, test more, test more, they combine, especially with all these AI editing tools or with these AI gen models, you just combine so many variables together that when something works, when a creator hits, when a video rips on Facebook, you don't know why. There's so many changes. Was it the environment that changed in the background? Was it the creator? Was it what the creator said? Was it what the creator showed? Was it with what like an overlay of text on top of it? Like you just don't know why something worked. But the way to know is not by testing a bunch of variables, it's isolating as many as you can until you have conviction on this thing, answer this question, and then you add a variable on top. But too many people just throw shit at the wall, hoping that something sticks, and it does. But when something works, you don't know why. And when something stops working, you don't know why. Who are my potential customers? Is it a mom? Is it a dad? Is it an entrepreneur? Is it someone that's a business owner that's or has an agency, right? You speak to each of those people differently. Therefore, the tests that you want to set up have different creatives, different messaging. Once you understand your audience, then you figure out the angle. What are you saying to the specific audience? You can talk to an entrepreneur about making more money. You can talk to an entrepreneur about saving more money. You can talk to an entrepreneur about freedom. Three different angles for the same audience requires three different creatives. Once you know that the best ad is an entrepreneur who wants freedom, then what are the three or nine or 20 most compelling ways to make content around that? Talking head video, maybe a testimonial from somebody else. But you see, like it's an inverted pyramid where people start with like, what concepts do I do first versus who am I speaking to? Why would they buy? And then what do I show them? That's the key thing. But you only test one at a time at each stage. Once you have the audience with confidence, angle, format, and you constantly repeat.
Next, I asked Phil, how do you figure out which variables to actually test?
In order to figure out what variables to isolate or to focus on, you first have to define what are you trying to answer. And I'll tell you this, 99% of businesses that I've seen so far that are mostly like, again, the startups growing, like once you're under that $10 million range, like you're going to fall under this bucket. The reason you're not growing is you don't know your audience because you've outgrown the current audience and you're still saying the same thing to the old people that bought, that
Mm.
were your initial innovative adopters, not the people that are going to get you to the next level of scale. The bigger brands understood that they have different personas buying and they're talking to everyone through different channels. But typically, the first thing is who is a person buying today? And the answer changes. Like today is January 16th. Person buying today for your business is different than the person buying on June 16th. One might summer, one is winter, but it can be a different audience altogether. So first step is define the question. Always start with the question and work backwards from it. So like, who are the people buying? If you want to give me an example of a brand or just like a category, I can like riff off of like an actual experiment for people if that's helpful.
Sure, let's do it. I was considering to get like one of those like the dual monitor screens, but for your laptop where it's like a full system. I forget the
Hmm.
name off the top of my head.
Okay, that's cool. That's a good one. All right, so let's say that brand, it's called like dualmonitor.com, for example. Cool. So, like the question that I would try to answer, and I'm curious if I was to take over this ad account, is who are the types of people that are buying this product? The given is like, yeah, you go for a digital nomad who likes working at coffee shops. Yeah, that's like one persona. That's given. That's probably where most of their sales are coming from, to be honest with you. So it's like people that work from home that want to work somewhere else. One audience. The second audience may actually be people that work at an actual office that don't have a monitor. So they're actual like in-office people. And the way you know that those are kind of two separate audiences is would the first person fall into the bucket of the second person? Would a person that's working from home work from an office? Maybe. So then your messaging for the work from home has to be so different that it's specifically from 5 days a week you work from home. So now you have work from home, work from office. And a third one might be people that only work like complete nomads, like in different countries, where they're going country to country to country, living out of a backpack. And the way you do that is like, would somebody working from home be traveling in different countries? Probably not. Would somebody working at an office be traveling in different countries? Probably not. So now you have three distinct audiences. Like everyone, this is the thing that's mind blowing is everyone like will use AI to like give me a bunch of audience ideas, or they'll copy like a top performing brand like Ridge or Groons or, AG1, all these brands. But really, you're sitting on so much gold that
Mm.
nobody looks at their customer reviews other than like, oh, Susan said this testimonial, so I'm going to copy that and make my Facebook headline banner. No, like what are the patterns in all the reviews? Now, what are the patterns in all your reviews across Google Ads, or sorry, Google, Amazon, Facebook reviews, and Trustpilot? Like, what are all the patterns across those? What are the names of the people? What are the genders of those people? Like, what are they saying the use cases? What are they complaining about? Then you have customer service tickets, huge data mine as well. Um, you can look at somebody's post-purchase surveys. You can, if your business takes phone calls, call transcripts, um, you can scrape an entire product page, website page. Like, what are your top ad comments saying? Right? There's so much gold there that those are your audiences. They're sitting inside of there. People are begging you to like, why do I buy the product? What like tagging other people that would be good fits for the product. Yeah, once you have the audiences, like those three that I mentioned, then it's like, what are three different angles for each of those audiences? So for someone working from home, it can be like, be more productive because now you have more monitors. Another one is like eye strain because now you don't have to, look at one small monitor and so on and so on. You build your creatives around that. You run them into like a individual ad set at the same budget, same targeting, same website, and then run it for like 7 to 14 days. And as long as you're looking at those three in isolation rather than the rest of your scaling accounts, you'll start seeing one of them is working better than the others. And generally, like those three individual ads inside of that ad set are specific to that ad set. So you're like, oh, these are grouped for this thing. I can't be confident in scaling this yet, but interesting. People working as nomads is outperforming all these other things by 30%. We should explore this more, and then you go deeper and deeper, and you just constantly do that cycle. Once you have full conviction, then you scale it. Let's say, I'm going to go back to this example of working as a nomad is the best performer, but you've never spoken to them directly. It's the first time you're ever speaking to them directly, but organically they've been buying your product off of your website's been generic, talking to people working from home, your product pages, people working from home, your listicles are about people working from home. What happens when you make specific funnels for that specific audience? Your conversion is probably going to go up. What happens when your product page gets catered to that audience? Probably conversion goes up. That's the real value of the insight. It's not the understanding that it works on Facebook. It's how can I apply this to the rest of my business? How can I share that with my email team? How do I share that with my content team? How do I share with my investors? Because that just gives everyone more confidence rather than like, I think a lot of media buyers, we're often siloed and we just work inside of the ad account. But like, we are the salespeople. Like, we're out there
Yeah.
getting sales and talking to the customers, but we don't talk to them. We see how they respond, and we have so much insights that stay locked in. I mean, if you think about all the budget of like on the P&L of a marketing team, most of it goes to Facebook. Therefore, none of the insights get spread outside of it.
Next, Phil and I started talking about seasonal demand. For example, a lot of businesses might have their best months over the summer, while for others, it's their slowest months of the year. So I asked Phil what happens when seasonal demand drops off.
A lot of businesses are driven by seasonal demand. Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas. Like those are the spikes that we all get. But what happens in between those peaks? Most people they call it an off season. So they pull back spend, lose momentum in everything that they built. Oftentimes they fire their agency, or if they keep their agency gets frustrated because now they're operating on lower spend. They're not getting as much data. So like every business that operates in these cyclical cycles slows down, their growth is capped. But if you really think about it, let's say March 3rd is considered an off season. Is your Shopify store getting $0 in sales? Probably not. You're probably getting some sales. Who is buying? Why are they
Hmm.
buying? Like a perfect example is 4th of July. It is one
Hmm.
day, but it's an entire season. I was mentioning these like patterns and clusters, right? And like showing what does that look
Hmm.
like? Like, for example, during the peak season, like these are the things that are obvious to a brand, right? Yeah, I know why people are buying, and like I know what like the reviews that are coming in. It's really obvious. Like peak season, you can scale because of these patterns. But during an off season, people are like, I can't. It's an off season because no one's buying. It's slow. It's like we can't grow. In my 10 years of business, it's impossible. But there are things like people are buying. You just have to connect the dots of what makes everybody uncommon, right? And it's just people don't understand that because they look at the surface level. But there are patterns. Like if you just zoom in a little bit more, you see this during an off season, and then this becomes a bigger thing.
I want to leave the last couple minutes here as well in case there's like some other areas you wanted to go deeper in or that you felt that we didn't touch on.
No, I'll stand by. Like I think Facebook is the greatest product ever created for an advertiser or marketer. I think it's especially now it's getting smarter and smarter. Targeting is getting cut more. It is further true, like creative is the targeting, but I think a lot of people get it wrong of like what that actually means. Going back to the earlier point of, content is going to zero. I think the future of content is highly personalized, mass scale for all users. But in order for that to be true, you really have to know who's in the receiving end. What's inside of those videos, what's being shown in those videos, what's being said in those videos, and you can manipulate that and scale that to infinity with iterations. But if you don't know who's actually clicking, who's actually buying, who your customers are, then you're just going to be burning money. It's a complete waste. So that original point of cost is going to zero, the cost of knowing is becoming very expensive. The fundamental moat in any business now is, do you understand your customer? Any business that understands their customer is going to win because most people don't understand their customer. There's like that saying, I think it's by Plato or Socrates, like know thyself, you know?
Yeah.
It's the key. It's like the human nature. It's like if you know the business, if you know how your business operates, that insight, that knowledge compounds year over year over year, makes you a more sellable asset, gives you more confidence, gives you more control. And Facebook can validate this in 3 days. That's the coolest thing about it. Like you just put spend behind it. You're like, do we get sales or do we not get sales? If we get sales, oh, what did I do? I did this one thing. Okay, let me go deeper. Cool. Deeper, deeper, deeper. Rather than like, let me just shoot a bunch of BBs and see what lands, and then I just can't
Mm,
recreate. Yeah, think about like when you onboard a new media buyer or a new agency or a new team member, how much time is lost in that initial period of like having them understand how the business operates. But if you had a playbook, if you had an understanding of, okay, we're in October and this is how our business will function, and then here's what happens after that period, people aren't asking questions. They go straight into it because they understand how the business works. It's like getting a report on your health and you know what things you need to do to change what lever. If people came in and they understood that right away, you don't judge them off of 1 month of lost performance because they can
mm.
immediately make impact. And that's the key thing about understanding is, again, most people have no understanding about their business, which is funny because like they just like they're somehow scaling it really fast and they're growing. But the more they grow, the less they know.
Next up, I asked Phil, how do you set up your experiments? Not from the Facebook side of things, but how do you actually set up a creative experiment?
So like from a high level, if I maybe pull up the slide, I can show you the three questions of what you ask, right? The who, the why, the how. And what those basically mean are the audience, the angle, and the format, right? Once you fundamentally know the audience, it's like a stair step. It unlocks the next step. Too many people are focused on like the format, like what am I supposed to make? Who can I copy? And they're starting on the foundation where it's unstable and the thing breaks. But once you build on the audience and the angle, you know. So the first thing we always do, and the funny thing I'll tell you a quick story on this brand is like they sell products for safety for senior citizens. So people think like 72 and plus. And they requested ads to be made. I can clearly show their website. They requested ads to be made for people that are senior citizens. And for 6 months, we've been doing that, right? It's the
Mm,
child of the parent, the caregiver. Because again, logically now it makes sense. The parent does not know how to use a phone. They don't know how to use a credit card. They don't know how to use Facebook. They don't know how to check out on Shopify. But of course, the child does. Like, oh, your parent can have peace of mind. Your parent can know that they're safe. But really, you're selling peace of mind to the child that when they get a call from their parent, it's going to be good news, not bad news, not that I fell, not that something happened, not that I'm sick, right? So that's a real product. Once that unlocked, huge lift in the business because like you understood the core customer, all the content, everything that we were doing here was focused on the format, like what ads can we make? But the audience was missing. Now that we knew the audience, we went into this angle test, which is currently what we're live with now. And the question that we ask now is, why does a child, the child of the parent, buy this product for their parent? And from a like a scientific or variable testing standpoint, we just broke it down very simply, and this is how I would suggest to set up an experiment. What are three unique ways that you can communicate this answer? One is there's probably types of people that are in this category where their parents fell and they already had that experience. Maybe there's a second group of people where the parent has never fallen before, but they've showed signs of the person falling. Therefore, you don't want this to actually happen because it's going to be traumatic for their health, medical bills, things like that. And the third one is the child, the caregiver, probably lives in a different state. They live many miles away, and there's distance between them. And then that phone call is the thing they don't want to get. And I
Mm.
was curious, and from the business side, now that if we can understand which of the three people resonate from where, then that will change the entire approach of the marketing messaging, the creators that we cast, the briefs that we make, the content that we show, the messaging that we deliver because of this one thing. Because again, it's clear who's buying. Once it's clear why they're buying, then we can show them what to do next. But it's just like test one thing at a time. The knowledge compounds, and then based off the knowledge compounding, you then stack these wins and you build up a repository of a playbook. That's the knowledge part, right? Like knowing what to do, right? And I think a lot of times, like where I actually figure out what to make the experiments is from the client calls. Like when I onboard somebody or get in a sales call, I understand their pain points. Everyone will be saying my CPA is too high, my ROAS is too low, I can't scale. Why? Ask why. You get to the root. Think of it like an iceberg. Like you have the problems on top, but the actual question is on the bottom. So to find the question, why aren't you growing? Oh, we can't sell during this period of time. Why? Oh, well, there's no reason for people to buy. Why? Typically, anyone who's listening to this or reading this, they probably have had sales. They have a track record of sales. Why has somebody bought on the day that is your lowest day of the year? You're not looking for the right answer. What's the best of the worst? Oftentimes people are like, this thing didn't scale. Nah, it's a wrong mindset. You either win or you learn. If you're a media buyer, right? Think about the cost of like, I think it's so hard to comprehend how much we spend on ads because it's just like a number. But a lot of brands spend 200, 300, like $400,000 a month on ads, $5 million a year. And if you're purely using that just to inform, like get sales, you're missing out on so much opportunity. How do you get sales and inform your client or inform your brand about what's working in the brand? It's just market research at the same time. Why do one or the other? It's like such a big budget that is just being wasted or not fully utilized. I just don't understand why people do that.
All right, hope you got something out of this one. I've linked the full blog post in this episode in the description below. And if you want to watch the full 37-minute unedited recording, this was just a preview, then you can join Catalyst on School. It's a community that's led by pre-vetted top 1% media buyers in our network. The link's also in the description for that. And if you're looking to actually hire one of these pre-vetted, proven top 1% media buyers for your own brand, then just simply go to mediabuyer.com and that's it. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.